Hey, Exmormonology listeners, this is Amy Logan, and I am your host here on Exmormonology. And I would love to invite you to work with me one-on-one in a mini session. That's it. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. But if you've been life coach curious, what it is actually like to work with a life coach, let's sit down together and work through a struggle that you're having. All you have to do is head over to my website at amyloganlife.com and sign up for a time that works for you. If you don't see one there, email me at amyloganlife@gmail.com and we'll find the perfect time for you. Exmormonology, Episode 5, Thoughts on the Loose. Hey, you guys, I'm Amy Logan with amyloganlife.com, and I am a life coach and the host of my Exmormonology podcast. I really believe, since I have been living life after Mormonism for quite a long time now, that when you're navigating this space after your faith crisis or your awakening, it takes a little study. It takes a little figuring out because you're doing things different than you have believed for a very long time. So thus the podcast. So I'm glad you're here. A lot of these tools that especially the one we're going to talk about today, I work with my clients one-on-one with, and we go over them and over them. So what I'm going to teach you in theory, I can teach you in a couple of minutes. But what I really want you to understand here is applying these things to your life is so important, because think of how many self-help books you've read, or blog posts you've read, or YouTube videos you've watched where you're trying to learn a new skill or beef up your self-confidence or feel better about the relationships in your life. Unless we are actually applying what we're learning, it's just kind of going in. And I don't know about you, if you're like me, where you've ever spent time where you just feel like you're reading so much stuff, but you're not making progress in your life, right? Like, we've probably all done this because it's easier to spin. And you can go back to my last episode. We talked about getting unstuck, and it might help you because I am here to help you make forward strides in your life. So today I want to talk to you about something called the model. And this is something that isn't new. It's been around a long time. Many different people teach it in different ways. How I'm going to teach it to you today, I hope that you can apply, like take notes, write it down, and you can use it in conjunction with, I think it was my second episode where I talk about thought downloads and getting your thoughts out on paper and why that's so important. You can do it on the computer, but I really recommend you get yourself a pretty new notebook, which most of us like to go do, and also a pen. And there's something that happens when you actually move your hand, write things down, and get it out in front of you so you can see it. So that's what I recommend you doing. I think I'm going to call this episode Thoughts on the Loose. I'm calling it this because when I first came to this work that I went to school for and became a certified life coach in, it was very eye-opening to me to see how I'd lived at that point, 47 years of my life, just letting my brain go all over the place, flip-flopping like a fish out of water, and just believing all the thoughts that I think. Now, I want to preface this with saying, you get to think whatever you want, and you get to make any decisions you want or spin an indecision as long as you would like. There's permission for that too. I know that everything we go through after we've walked through the door of a faith crisis takes time and evolving. But I hope you can apply this and let it be a tool that helps you make forward progress. So I want to talk to you today about what is called the model. What this has to do with is that we have thoughts that run through our head that create feelings. Every feeling you feel is connected to a thought that you think. All right? Nothing new. This isn't rocket science, but applying this is everything. So I have a model, and it has 5 steps. And like I said, I work with my clients on this every single week because it takes a while to see what thoughts are running through your head that are giving you problems, or you're getting stuck and spinning in those specific thoughts. So the reason why it's important to do a thought download is for the first step in the model. All right? The first step in the model is the circumstance. It's very important that when we're trying to find the circumstance that we're going to do a model on, that we separate all of your thoughts from it. So it's just a thing. So, or a person, all right, or something specific that happened. And I like to use the example of it can be proven true in a court of law. So we're going to remove the drama from it. We're going to remove the story from it. And we're just going to strip it down to maybe it's my mother said words, all right, or husband, or child failed chemistry test. All right. I mean, you can insert anything you want here. We're stripping it down to something that everyone can agree on. So it's something that happened. All right. So that's why you need to be very specific about the circumstance, because whatever it is, you have a thought about it. And this is where most of us get stuck because we believe the thought to be true. I was talking with someone, this has been a while, so I don't remember all of the circumstances around it, but she shared with me a thought that she had, and I said, "Well, that's a terrible thought." And she said, "I believe it with my whole heart to be true." And I wasn't coaching, and I don't coach without permission. And all I could do was kind of go, "Oh my gosh, this is what we do with our thoughts. We believe them to be true so much. And then that is what causes us to feel fear, anxiety, shame, guilt, anger, right? Insert the emotion. And we just run with it. And so our thoughts are on the loose. This is what happens every single time. Once you start to think in the form of the model, things can really start changing for you because what you're going to be doing is looking into your brain instead of just letting your brain drive the car anywhere it wants. So far up to this point, that is what has been happening. Okay, so this is why this is such an important episode. So stay with me here. I'm going to give you some examples so that makes good sense. So you're going to have the circumstance, and then you're going to have a thought about that circumstance. Okay, so I'm going to use an example that I worked on when I was going through certification for my life coaching. I used this on my boyfriend, of course. He was a good guinea pig. And it's kind of funny, a little side note into this. He was very skeptical of what I was doing. Okay, I'm just going to preface it with that. So I was kind of really nervous to be like, okay, I have these skills. I want to use them on you. But one day he did. We were in Salt Lake City and we were at the Utah Arts Festival. And we just got talking because I don't know if you've ever been to that. It's in June every year, downtown Salt Lake. I love going. Tons of artists, beautiful booths with so many great things to see. And Jim is an artist, an amazing one. And he has been hung up on applying to get into different art shows. So he's like, okay, take me through the thought model. I was like, oh no, here we go. If I can do this properly with him, I can coach anybody. That's what I was thinking. Don't tell him that though. Anyway, so we sit down over where the food is. We're in the shade. It's just lovely. And I start going, okay, so tell me what your thoughts are about art shows. Like, because I'm like, why aren't you in more art shows? So if in this situation, the 5 steps of the thought model: circumstance, thought, feeling, action, result. Okay, there's the 5 steps. I'm going to plop in what I coached him through. Applying to art shows would be the circumstance. His thought was art shows, or the company that's running them, are the ones who make the money, not the artists. He felt resentful about that. So the action he took was just not to apply. And the result of that was I don't make money as an artist. So he was proving his thought true again and again and again. Now, this took me longer to walk him through because I had to do some fishing and I had to talk about each thing with him. But this is just a really good, neat, and tidy example of how the thought model works. We are constantly proving our thoughts true, and because our brains are really tricky and good at this, they will for sure grab the evidence to prove whatever you're thinking is true. So if you have a problem that you're spinning and spinning with, and you don't reword the problem or your thought, and you just keep going down that road, you will continually get the same results you do in life with anything. Seriously, this is the secret to life, you guys. Right here. You get to manage your mind, and this is what it looks like. Instead of believing every frustrating thought, every angry thought, all the thoughts that keep your head spinning. You get to start questioning the thoughts and wording them differently or finding thoughts that feel better. Because eventually we get frustrated with ourselves, right? When we find ourselves feeling full of anxiety all the time or feeling confused all the time. You can backtrack this. You can say, right now I'm feeling anxious. And then let your brain go, why am I feeling anxious? And I bet you can find a thought that's connected to that. And this is why I call it thoughts on the loose, because you're so used to that thought and thinking that thought. Like, think about something you've thought about yourself that's negative, and you've just let that thought keep coming into your brain again and again and again. We get to think whatever we want in life, all right? We get to make out with whatever thoughts we want to. And this is what I want you to start looking at it like, because we do this in our heads all of the time. I would love for you to create thoughts that you'd rather make out with than the ones that make you really upset. Okay, does that make sense? When we're trying to make forward steps in life, if we keep thinking negative thoughts, we're just going to spin in that space. Now, in theory, this sounds very easy. Okay, so Amy, you're just telling me to think better thoughts. Now, this is where it gets tricky, and this is why when my client comes to me, we work on this every time during our sessions because we don't even see our thought patterns sometimes. They're so ingrained in us and imprinted, and we, like I said at the beginning, that person I was talking to where she's like, I believe that to be true with all of my heart, and I don't even remember what the thought was, but I remember thinking, that's a terrible thought. You don't have to believe that. Right? We get to pick and choose what we want to believe, just like you got to decide, I don't believe the Mormon church to be true anymore. Now, as you're discovering, that has its own ripple effect of different thoughts and different relationships and how you're handling life post faith crisis, right? So when I work with my clients, we dig really deep to find out other underlying thoughts and feelings that come up with the different circumstances in your life. So the truth is, you can solve any problem you have in life by using the model. Now, if it seems too confusing to put everything in top to bottom in the 5 steps, just use the half model. And that would be finding the circumstance or the issue that you're struggling with, find the thought and the feeling. And if you can just do those 3 things, you will start to see how your feeling is connected to your thought. All right. And we work on that. And what we're ultimately trying to do is create different beliefs in you, because you can look around your life and you can see what you believe in life, whether it's about money, weight, self-confidence, relationships, right? Not that we can control other people or we can control other circumstances, but you could start to see how this will change the dynamic of some things in your life for the better. That's the whole point. If you have beliefs and thoughts that you love and they create good feelings, good. This is to be used for things where you're struggling and you're having some blind spots in your life. You get to apply the thought model, and you'll be amazed at how when you can start looking at your thoughts as not facts, like I mentioned in, I think, I don't know, one of the other podcasts, you start to take the control back of your life instead of feeling like you're at the mercy of the thoughts blowing through your brain. What happens when you start using the thought model is you'll start recognizing your thoughts more often. And you can use this every day. I have to use this every day. If I find something that I'm just getting frustrated with, I'm like, okay, Amy, what is the thought that is making me frustrated? And I can start dissecting what's going on in my brain. So powerful. You can solve anything with this, you guys. Okay, so this is going to kind of blow your mind. This whole thing should be blowing your mind, by the way. And I get pushback sometimes from my clients, and that's okay. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. This is just to help you. And if this is a tool that you like and you can start using, then let it help you. But what you'll find out that is it's not the problem. That's the problem, right? It's your thoughts about the problem. And so we get stuck in our own head because we're constantly thinking it shouldn't be this way. This shouldn't have happened. And then we're just creating a vicious cycle for ourselves because we're just going to keep coming up against that. And that also keeps us stuck in problem mode instead of solving mode. When you get good at this, and this is a lifetime practice, all right? I've been using these tools for a while now, and I still have to sit down and go, okay, Amy, break this down. What you start to realize when you use this tool regularly is that you have some power in this situation instead of feeling powerless or like a victim. If you're upset about something, it's because of what you're making it mean. Now, we make lots of things mean something. So let's use the example of, let's say, your bishop or one of his counselors sends you a text or an email or a phone call and says, "I'd like to set up an appointment for you to come in for tithing settlement." And let's say you left the church, you know, at the beginning of the year, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, who does he think he is? Why do they keep calling me?" Yada, 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 right? You have all these thoughts, you have feelings of frustration, and usually we make it mean something else. And because our brain likes to prove whatever that thought is that they shouldn't be calling you, then before you know it, we've pulled everything into the situation to make it even more dramatic than it was just a text, someone inviting me to tithing settlement, and I don't want to go. Okay, do you see that? Can you see the difference here? You don't have to make it mean anything more than I'm just going to say no to this invitation. All right. Now, I know, especially when we're in the initial stages, it's very easy to kind of like connect everything and throw it all into one big stew and start complaining about everything. But when you're ready to start making changes in your life, it's about breaking it all down. That situation doesn't need to mean anything more than it was just someone calling me in and I said no. The end, moving on. Okay? That's a quick example, but this is how it can be used in your life. Let's say your brother didn't invite you to your nephew's baptism. All right? And this is kind of I see this happening quite a bit. We get mad because we didn't get the invite, but yet we're also complaining that their child's getting baptized, all in the same breath, right? And we make it mean if that brother didn't invite us. So you have a thought that he should have invited me to the baptism, and you have a feeling now because he didn't do that of frustration or anger or whatever feeling that would bring up for you. It's possible that your brother just assumed you didn't want to come. End of story. And that's a fair assumption on his part if he knows you've left the church. All right. So I'm just giving you these examples so you can start seeing how you get to start managing your mind around all these things that are just happening. Like my clients often come to me and they'll tell me a story like, this is just the way it is. Right. And my job as your life coach is to like hold up a mirror to your mind and go, okay, look, that thought that you just said that you don't even realize is a thought, you're just presenting it to me as a fact when really it's just a thought about a certain circumstance. Like, let's break that down and dive in. All right. It's super important to see that distinction there. So I kind of want you to think about what is the problem that either keeps coming into your life or you just keep rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. I'm so mad. How could you start applying this or at least recognizing that your thoughts are creating your feeling? All right. We know that a feeling is a vibration through the body and feelings come and go, but they're always connected to a thought. So in every situation, you always have choices. But because we're so good at throwing like everything into the pool when we get mad about something, we don't keep it to that one specific issue and we've blown it way out of proportion. And so this is a way for you to start feeling like you're taking your control back, you're managing your mind around it. And that feels so much more empowering than just being at the whim at whatever thought you think that it must be true. And therefore, now I'm angry and I'm going to be angry forever. Right? So this is a tool that you use when you're ready to start not feeling so angry. Or maybe you don't want to feel so anxious all the time. You're going to find that thought that's creating those feelings for you. So stay in the first half of the model for a little while. The action and the results, we can come back and spend some more time on how it creates the actions you're taking in life and then for sure the result. And the result you get in life is usually always improving the thought true. It's a little more advanced for what I want to talk to you about today, but keeping those thoughts that are on the loose, like within reason, right? So even if we can just start noticing our thoughts and that they're creating the feeling, that alone is huge, you guys. And then it's what you make that all mean. So let me know, like, do you find yourself, something happens and then you grab all the other things to prove your point? Okay, most of us do this and we just do this without even realizing how fast that spiral can go. Because you probably even do this with thoughts about yourself. If you have, I don't know, let's say you just have a belief that you can't do anything right. Like if that's your thought about something, about yourself just showing up in life, and that is an undercurrent thought that's just kind of lacing every day of your life, how does that make you feel? And when you feel that way, how do you show up in the world? What do you do? It's probably not very confident. You probably feel sad. You probably don't know what to say when you're talking to a loved one. See, can you see the rabbit hole there? That's why this is so important for you to know. And I want you to start using this so you can start recognizing the thoughts. So this is going to be a little more advanced too, but I think it's so important to look at the problems in our life. Like, for example, it's not the circumstance that's the problem. It's how I'm thinking about the problem. All right. So same with the church. And I know that there'll probably be a little pushback here, but you could be like, the church is ridiculous. The church should not be doing what they're doing. Well, the church, just like any other organization, they get to do what they want. They get to run their church how they want. It's your thought that they shouldn't be running the church or that it shouldn't even be a church that is causing you pain. Now, I know there's so many layers to this. I totally get it. And that's why it takes time to process this. But when you're really trying to work on healing and you're really trying to move on from the anger or the grief or, the sadness, all of those things, then we have to start looking at it differently. But this is where you get your power back. That's why this is so important. Instead of giving the church the power to control your emotions, you get to decide how you're going to think and feel all the time. And this is why it's empowering, because you no longer feel like you're the victim when you know you're the boss of your thoughts. You're the boss of what goes on in your brain all the time. So this goes true with any family, quote unquote, family drama, church drama, friend drama. Like we'll get to an episode where we talk about drama. Drama is not really a thing. We make it a thing by blowing things up, right? And how we're thinking and feeling about it. But how does it feel when you get to decide, you get to think about something however you want? Now, you can like your reasons for not liking the church. I'm not even telling you not to do that. But when you want to feel more empowered, you create thoughts like, I chose to leave the church because I don't like what they're doing. That gives you a different feeling than the church should never be doing what they're doing and yada, 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 right? Do you see the difference? I'm not saying you have to change your fundamental belief about the church, but you get to take your power back by how you think about it. So when you decide that you're going to be the boss of your own brain and that your emotional health, your mental health is not at the whim of everyone else and what they're saying and doing, you feel more empowered and you feel stronger. So eventually what I like to do with my clients is, because we can't always just change our deep beliefs quickly. All right. If you're how you feel about money, how you feel about your weight, how you feel about your relationships, all of those key things that usually keep us up at night or create anxiety or frustration for us. Look around your life and you'll see what you believe in life. How are your relationships with people? All right. The part that you have control over. You have no control of what other actions people take. We're just talking about the thoughts that you're thinking about your relationship with your spouse, your relationship with the church, your relationship with your kids, your relationship with money, the relationship with your health. Okay. Those are things that you can control, how you think about it. So I think it's really important to say, are you in charge of how you're thinking and feeling? Or are you letting other people control how you think and feel? Can you see that difference? Because people get to make choices and do things however they want, but only you can control what thoughts go on in your head. And so I guess the biggest piece of this that I hope that if you start practicing this kind of principle or this tool is that you get to take your own power back, because you're not at the whim and mercy of what everyone else is doing and thinking. Think of how empowering that is. You get to be the boss of your brain. Your thoughts don't have to be on the loose. You get to consciously create what you want to feel in life and how you want to think about anything. So going back to the thought model, The goal is to get the circumstance to be neutral. That could be kind of heavy because if we put, like, let's just say we put the church in as the circumstance. The reason I say to get it to neutral is because it's just a thing. It's a organization. All right. You get to think whatever you want. You get to feel whatever you want. But when you're ready to make that change, you get to just see it as it's just the church. And I like to use this example because we, as post Mormons, don't always get caught up in what the Catholic Church is doing or what Jewish communities are doing or what Muslim people are doing. Like, we're not emotionally affected by that because that's not our lived experience. And so that's what I say. When you're ready and you can start looking at the thoughts that are creating your feelings, you will start to take your own power back. And that's what it's all about, my friends. All right. This is for your mental health. This is so you start feeling better and you start feeling like you're the captain of your own ship, which is your brain. Right. We as humans are so good at letting our thoughts be on the loose and spinning out of control and grabbing everything that we can to pile on to this problem that we're having instead of actually doing the opposite and stripping our problems down to kind of the bare bones without adding on all that baggage. All right. This is probably going to be one of those episodes you're going to want to listen to a few times so you can take notes and you can really process what I'm saying. Now, it won't surprise me if you have, even just listening to me talk, come up with at least 10 or 15 reasons why this can't possibly be true. And that's okay because it may be a new concept. Maybe it's something you've heard before, but you've never really digested. So with that, I just want you to start practicing. I want you to start noticing when you're feeling anxiety about something. What is it that you're thinking about? And usually we're so caught in our heads, we don't take the time to break it down. But taking the time to break it down does a couple things. Okay. It's a little bit of a brain hack because you're interrupting your thoughts and you're writing them down so you can look at them. Like I said, that's why I like you to get this on paper. This is the only way we get inside our heads and look at what's going on in there. The most important part of this is when you do that, you start to take your power back because you start to manage your mind. This is what managing your mind looks like. I had heard managing your mind, change your thoughts, change your life, like all of those things. But I'm like, what does that even mean? I don't understand it. This makes sense to me. Now, what we'll do next time is talk about how we change it from what is, right? And we'll go into changing how we want to be feeling. Okay, because that's a little bit different. So this one's called the model, the unintentional model. We'll go into how we do an intentional model, which means how do we work on actually changing some of our beliefs, how to create thoughts that help us versus thoughts that keep us stuck. Next time, we'll talk about the intentional model. Whew. All right, I think that's a lot for today. This is a big concept to wrap your brain around. Like I said, it's not rocket science, but applying this to your life is a whole different story because intellectually we can understand something. This is one of the examples I like to use too. It's just like we all know what kind of foods we should be eating, right? We all know what's good for us, how much water we should be drinking a day, how many steps we should be taking so we can monitor it on our Fitbit. We all know like that it might not be healthy to eat a gallon of ice cream every night, all right? Logically, we know those things. Emotionally, it's a whole other story. So what this does is it takes you very logically how to solve any problem. Drop it in the thought model, practice it. This is where we'll start to think on purpose and create thoughts that move us in the right direction versus keeping us stuck. All right. It's a big one. That's why my clients come to me so I can help them through this with problems that are specific to them. And if you guys, of course, I would love to work with you as well. And so if you're interested in that, email me at amyloganlife@gmail.com. I can set up a mini session for you. I do gifted 30-minute mini sessions where I can give you some really great value around something that you're struggling with that's applicable to you specifically. And then, of course, tell you about my program. I have my Exmormonology coaching program, which is an 8-week course that I take you through and teach you these tools and show you how you can use all of the tools in my tool bag to better your life. Because that's what this is about. We don't need to spin and spin in our thoughts that have gone on the loose, you guys. You get to take your power back, and this is what it looks like. So, all right, it's another episode of Exmormonology. I will see you again here next week.